All right. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Hi there.
All right. Welcome
Friday.
to another. Yeah. Happy Friday.
Friday.
Yeah.
Beautiful day here in
Oh.
Keene.
So gorgeous.
Ah,
Our first Friday of autumn, official autumn is here.
Yeah.
already.
And the trees are out in force here in New Hampshire. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. It's exciting. We recently bought a cornhole. My husband bought a cornhole outfit. So it's kind of fun. Like in the late day to put, we've even got like little LED lights so you can actually see. You guys know what a cornhole is, right? Yeah. It's that old fashioned game.
That's
Yeah.
new.
So it's called cornhole because the bean bags used to be corn instead of beans. And then you have to get the corn in the hole. So it's cornhole. But it's just kind of fun. I mean, that's kind of just like a fun, relaxing thing. We have some company coming over this evening and we're going to really try to persuade them to take us on in a cornhole. So, but that's the fun of fall or whatever.
Yes.
Fun of,
And fire pits and
yeah.
outside stuff.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Apple picking. Gotta get that apple picking.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
someone was just in earlier and said they went apple picking at a farm in, well, I mean, just Dunspark, something New York, Vermont. I don't know. Does anybody know where that is? But it was only like 8 minutes from. They live in Chesterfield, so it wasn't that far away. But it said it
I
was.
went to Allen Brothers for the first time. Oh, Allison's Orchard probably.
Yes. Yep. Speaking
close.
of Allison, yeah.
And then Allen Brothers, they don't have picking, but they have delicious apple cider, and they have these apple cider donuts that are unbelievable.
Yeah, those
Looks
are
like
my favorite.
Yeah,
Really those are awesome. And then somebody yesterday, a client brought me like a quart jar of apple cider from one of these, orchards. So we are getting there.
Fall, yay for fall.
Yeah.
Well,
We said that for summer. Summer was cool too. I mean, that was, I love the changing of the seasons. What do you think, Tisa? Because this is not your native home, New England. What do you think?
I love it. I'm a fall baby though. So September is my birthday month. So I am a fall baby. And even in the South, like they still have Technicolor changing of trees and stuff. It's just doesn't happen now. It happens like October, November. So it's actually summertime through sometimes Christmas, but mostly warmer weather down south. It just starts to change a lot later.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Where did you grow up, Allison? Here? No.
There he is.
Outside of New York City in Westchester County.
You're sideways, Matt.
Oh, sorry about the technical difficulty today. Is that any better?
Yeah.
But where, Allison? Where?
Westchester County, Austining.
Sure.
It's like an hour from New York City.
Yeah, so that's
So
still
we had some
New England. Yeah, pretty much.
Something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Something really special about New England, or about New Hampshire too.
And for our regular attendees, you might be seeing that we're missing someone, our dear Dr. Gene Clerkin from Monadnock Natural Health. And he is on children duty right now.
Duty today.
It's a huge priority, isn't it? And, he and his wife are have opted for the homeschool pathway this fall. So really shout out to you, Jean, and, your wife. And just really love, seeing people taking care of their kids. So that's foundational. Yeah.
Yeah.
We thought we were saying like, what are we going to talk about today? And Allison and I were talking earlier before we came on, and we were saying it's just so cool because we all deal with people have the same health problems, right? They all have the same health problems. We all have different approaches that are great when they're used, especially in synergy, one with each other. But also, we all have the same passion for this is us strengthening ourselves so that we are the best we can be when it comes to health, so that we don't become ill, so that we don't need medications, so that we can live and thrive and really be the best we can be, reach our genetic potential, so to speak. And I think it's wonderful because everything that we do, even though it has all of its different nuances, goes towards that. You know, I went down for my treat yesterday with Doctors Abatali and down at Cheshire Wellness. So I do their spinal network analysis. I'm doing that. And I walked in there and I saw 2 people I knew, you know, from the work I do. And then when I was coming out, I saw another one that I know from the work I do. And so it's wonderful when we say, it's not just one thing. It's not just get your diet right. It's not just take the right supplements or herbs. It is, but what about your spine? What about these other things that you, Allison, talk about too? So that's what makes it super exciting for me.
Well, being a healthcare team, you know, it's like, I think collectively, we are a really good team of practitioners to be part of someone's, you know, healthcare priorities. And you know, you could go to the hospital and you could see an oncologist, you could see a cardiologist, you could see a podiatrist. Like there's different people on your team and they specialize in each thing. Mm-hmm. And so we're the same thing, you know, we specialize in optimizing your health and optimizing who you are, just through different modalities. And so it's the same thing as, you know, having even a massage therapist on your team, or if you wanted a Reiki healer on your team. There's no one answer for anything, which is what's cool. And I think together, collectively, we are a very powerful team for people. Yeah. I love it.
And we don't have to know it all. You do what you do best and outsource the rest. So it's like, go see this person for that, you know. And I love having people I can trust and rely on to be competent in what they're doing, and certainly feel over the top about all of you and Dr. Jean as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the topic we threw out today, I threw out, was cancer. Because cancer is something everybody's familiar with. If you haven't had cancer yourself, or you don't have cancer yourself, you know somebody, you probably know a lot of people with cancer, whether they're in your family, whether you're friends, whether, you know, cancer is a huge problem today. And so I just thought, you know, it's kind of a good jumping off point, but we don't have to stick on this subject. Is talking about things we can do, especially we're coming into October, which is Pink Month, which I always call Breast Cancer Unawareness Month, because there's a lot we can do to protect ourselves from getting breast cancer that we're not hearing when we go for our yearly, meeting with the doctor, because they don't know. And so I'm passionate about that. I'm also kind of aghast about, I had a man in yesterday, he has, for the first time, now has a bile duct, a biliary duct. So you're thinking gallbladder people. Cancer, he's had surgery, he's now, you know, it's metastasized, and it's in his, you know, he's undergoing treatment, he's lost a lot of weight. So the nutritionist he has seen through oncology and mainstream basically told him, you need to gain weight, so it doesn't matter what you eat. You can have donuts, you can have funny bones, you can have Twinkies. As long as you get 2,600 calories a day, it doesn't matter what you eat. And we all know that's not true.
Yeah, as far as I see it, you have your healthy cells and you have cancer cells, and which ones are you feeding? And that's something I'd like to know more about, maybe Becky, if you know about, but I was under the impression, I think there was a study by German researchers way back when, I think that was where I picked it up, but it's pretty famous. And it's like commonly known and hopefully accurate, I think, that cancer cells will use glycolysis as a means of gathering energy. So it means that they feed on sugar, whereas your normal healthy cells use oxidative phosphorylation, meaning they use oxygen. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense if you get lots of exercise and deep breathing and you're eating dark leafy greens that are creating lots of, and healthy fats, creating lots of oxygen in your body, as opposed to these fastly digested sugars that are just going to kind of feed the cancer and give it what they want. Is there some truth to that?
Yeah, that's really true. And so glucose is the only fuel that cancer cells can use. And so you do want to really limit your sugar intake when you have cancer, or to prevent cancer, and to help as a preventive program to limit that sugar. But I'll give an example. I use high dose melatonin for people with cancer for a variety of reasons. But one of the things Dr. Frank Schallenberger out in Arizona does is because he uses it, that's how I learned about it, for people with cancer. But anyway, what he'll do is he will take a person in his clinic and give them enough insulin so that their blood sugar goes nearly diabetic coma. Of course, this is all under supervision, right? But they've got a blood glucose down there. This person is about to go into a diabetic coma because of why? Because the cancer cells use what are called GLUT receptors. So take your cancer cell, right? And all of a sudden your cancer cell, these are cancer cells, they see that there's no sugar here. There's no glucose here whatsoever in the bloodstream to feed me. So what I do, those are my GLUT receptors. I pop them out like antlers, and they're just ready to take whatever sugar's in the body, whatever is there, whatever glucose is there, we're going to grab it because that's how we will survive. And then what Schallenberger does is he gives a major dose, like a 250 to 300 milligram dose of melatonin, because melatonin uses those GLUT receptors and goes into the cells and kills them. So that's like a really kind of a very easy way to see the sugar cancer correlation here. The GLUT receptors, that's how they get fed. So as long as you're eating your donuts and your funny bones and all of that and getting your $2,600 a day with soda and Twinkies and ice cream, great. You might get some belly fat. You're not gonna gain robust weight like muscular or anything. It's not gonna feed your mitochondrial energy. You're just gonna get fat, which is not helpful, except it looks good on the scale, I guess, when you go to see your doctor. But if that's a really good thing, is like your cancer cells are like this, and they don't even need to go like that because you're just feeding them all the time. And doctors will say, oh, there's no correlation between eating sugar and cancer. Well, that's just a lie. It's not true.
Now, what about different forms of sugar? Like, would it be wise to stay away from fruits as well? Or is it because it's processed a little differently in the body, it's safer? So your normal cells, we do need some sugar, right?
Yeah, I don't even recommend like a really strict diet with people with cancer. I say stay away from processed food. Stay away from foods with hormones and antibiotics added and things like that. Some people are all on a vegetarian type thing. Macrobiotics to me is death because it's just grain. It's just grain, and nothing else. And that's translates to sugar. But I don't tell people not to eat fruit, especially your non-high sugar fruits that are fantastic for your antioxidant potential, such as berries, blueberries, strawberries, grapes are fantastic. So I'm not a real, like, you have to follow this really strict diet. You have to not eat junk, cut out all the junk.
The basics.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was at the meeting with my mother, has survived breast cancer, thank goodness. And I was at the meeting, and we were talking. I was just like, I was staying very neutral. I wasn't like, I just wanted to hear what she had to say and what she was telling my mother. And because it's very emotional and it's very stressful when you're being told that you have cancer and what it's doing in your body. And I was just like, I was just asking, like, so what are your recommended, so if we didn't move so quickly towards surgery, regardless of the stage, 0 and 1, by the way. And I was like, just curious, like, what can she do diet wise? How can she like decrease inflammation in her body? Like, what are your recommendations for that? And she kept saying, well, our standard of care is this, and we need to do surgery right now to get rid of the tumor. And I was like, but why can't we give her body, if it's growing at like a 4% rate, you know, which is very small for X amount of time, I don't remember the exact details. I was like, why can't we just take 6 months and really clean up her diet, like get away from the processed foods and eat more whole grains, you know, let her work with a nutritionist first, you know, and maybe that can help diminish the tumors so we don't feed them. And she goes, well, we're just supposed to eat right anyway. And I'm like, but that's not the answer. Like, that's not, but their standard of care, they don't know. She can't give nutritional advice because she didn't know. And so I was like, well, why wouldn't we try this first instead of jumping into something very dramatic, you know, for her? She goes, well, that's our standard of care. And I just trying not to get frustrated, but I was just a little hurt with how they approach it. And she was like, well, what do you do? And I was like, well, I'm a chiropractor, you know. I was like, give the body a fighting chance first. And she kind of was like, oh, oops. You know, she had said something earlier, not terrible, but like, don't trust chiropractors who do this work or something like that. And I was just like, I was just frustrated because I was like, people aren't given the opportunity to clean up some things first to see if that might help diminish their concerns or their symptoms or even the progression of their cancer as it grows, because they're just not given that information. And so I wish that was something that was definitely more prevalent. Like, okay, so you're not at high risk. Maybe you should try this first before we go in and like create more trauma in your system.
Yeah, I think that brings up a really good point. So you said something, standard of care, you know, well, that's our standard of care. So if you're listening and that's a little nebulous, like, so that sort of term, each profession has a standard that we are expected to follow. And if we don't follow that standard, we are considered negligent, right? So we are bound to that. And depending on the lens that your practitioner is looking through, they will have a certain standard of care. So if you're, in this case, so we're talking about like illness that's potentially terminal, right? So, because we all know people who have had cancer and who have totally come out on the other side, right? And we know of the opposite also. So it's potentially terminal, but also it's not. And I'd like to get into maybe what happens on the other side when it's not, because that's a really interesting topic for me. So the different practitioners, different professions will have their different lens that they look through for your health, and they'll have a different standard of care to follow. So when speaking with an oncologist, they've got their standard of care and their tools. When speaking with a qualified nutritionist, they do, you know, acupuncture, chiropractic, you know, herbalists, homeopaths, everyone's going to have their lens and their standard of care. So it's really important to, as we sort of led off with today, get a team, get as many opinions and as many lenses on your concerns as possible, so that then you can make the best informed decision.
Yeah. And piggybacking on that, Matt, with standard of care. So here's the difference. The AMA is the only legal entity in the United States that can diagnose, treat, or cure disease. That was all done back in the early 1900s. And that was the Rockefellers and the Carnegies. They came in and they kind of like made themselves, the AMA, the only legal entity. So when they hold to standard of care, it is super restrictive for them. So in other words, if you come to see me and I'm a doctor or a registered nurse practitioner, I'm within the umbrella of mainstream medicine, the AMA. Say you have cholesterol that falls outside of whatever guideline is this year, and I don't recommend to you a statin drug. I might not even think you should have a statin drug, but if I don't recommend it, I'm putting myself really in jeopardy. Number one, I could be censored by my peers. I could be censored by the hospital or the clinic that I'm working in. I could lose my license. You could go out there and have a heart attack and say, well, look, you know, you didn't prescribe a statin drug. So the standard of care in mainstream medicine is very restrictive for so many reasons, legal, professionally, whatever. And when it comes to cancer, I know that because I work with cancer a lot. So I have doctors, you know, that interaction and kind of things like that. And like this one doctor said to a person, you know, who was using a novel new treatment for brain cancer, which had nothing to do with me, but it's new. And she said, would you, to the doctor, the oncologist, would you ever use this as a first line treatment? Because it's so non-invasive, it's non-toxic, it's blah, blah, blah. And she said, I can't, because that's not the standard of care. The standard of care in cancer is surgery, chemo, and radiation.
Right.
So we have to understand that, yeah.
Right. And to put that in context, so standard of care, by the time it's profession wide, is generally speaking 9 to 10 years dated. So when you have novel treatment like that, someone is bound to prescribing you something from, in this case, 2010 or 2009 even.
It's so important. It's so great that you guys explain that, because most people don't know that. I hear so often in my clinic, you know, well, you know, I'm saying, well, I think, for example, I think vitamin C might help you out. Well, I think, you know, my doctor would tell me if it did. You know, there's so much trust in the doctor, and we're not realizing that it's a very specific lens, and it's not a good lens or a bad lens. Western medicine is incredible for emergencies. It's very, very powerful, but it has its place, and so do other lenses of medicine. So like Matt was saying, so important to get a holistic view, and especially when we're like talking or thinking about something like cancer, because there are so many facets. By the time it gets to cancer, there's so many different things at play. So within the lens of Chinese medicine, there's no specific concept for cancer, but we talk about a tumor. And a tumor can have internal causes or it can have external causes. So an internal cause would be like stagnation of energy in the body. An external cause would be like environmental toxins. But then my main point being that by the time the tumors come, that's a symptom. That's not the root. That's not where it started. So it started somewhere, and then we treat the underlying imbalances we find in the body, and then the body resolves the tumor.
Yeah. And
Cool.
I think too, what the three of you do is, whether you're saying, you know, I'm doing this work to go after cancer in this particular way, your work strengthens the immune system. And that's where it all, you know, I mean, the immune system being powerfully functional is huge for everything. We talked about autoimmune illness last week on this webinar, and having that balance of immune system. And doesn't the work that you all do, I know it does, feeds and nourishes the immune system working properly and in a balanced fashion.
Right. And speaking of that, it's really interesting because and I just want to say one thing real quick, like I'm not bashing any oncologist, I'm not bashing any medical doctor or anyone who works in that field. We understand that your standard of care is what it is. And we also understand there's limitations to every profession. So working together is always going to be more beneficial than just going one route. So I just want to say that it's not bad. You know, we are all together here to help people in any way that we can survive the things that people go through. So it's necessary when necessary, and thank you for what you do.
Yes.
And so when it comes to the immune system, like after, let's say people do go, they have very terminal, or not, let's say terminal, but getting to the point of terminal, diagnosis. And so they have to go the route of the chemo and radiation. It's not going to say you're going to die from it necessarily. I mean, many people survived it, but they bank on, we're going to do the surgery, we're going to remove that tumor, and we expect that your body will heal itself. And that's what the immune system, that's what the body is designed to do. Like They don't go in and say, hey, white blood cells, go kill that infection, or platelets, start patching up, you know. Nobody tells our bodies what to do. Our bodies just are brilliant and know what to do. And it's doing the best that it can with the stressors and the processes that we are putting into it. And this is how it's adapting, whether it's an autoimmune system disorder, or it's a cancer that shows up, or even an ache and pain. It doesn't matter what it is. It's doing the best it can, because the body and the nervous system is never against you. It's doing the best it can with what it is given. So that's what tends to happen over time. And so, Becky, when you're talking about the immune system, like having supportive products to boost your immune system, getting good nutrition, balancing your chi, making sure your nervous system is clear and communicative between the brain and the body. And then Dr. Jean's work, cleaning out bugs, you know, and getting in different nutrients that we're missing. I mean, it's all part of the collective. And so, and then if you have to go, you've tried these routes, you've tried different things, and it's still just not getting better. Yes, the emergency is for the emergency, you know, like if you have to go to finally get to the point, like I feel like surgery should be the last resort instead of the first resort, you know, like give yourself a fighting chance to do the things that it is supposed to do. And if it's not, then go that route, because we are designed to heal. We are designed to work brilliantly. And we just sometimes don't give ourselves enough credit, because we, like we were talking last week, you know, we give our power away to somebody else, trusting that they know better. And it's like, well, I think the system knows better, actually.
What I really like too, though, is that, like you were saying, Dr. Tisa, is we're not bashing mainstream medicine. I work with people who are going through chemo and radiation, and it doesn't matter, because the things that I do help the chemo and radiation work better and protect against side effects, the things that I recommend. Cool. So it's a great synergy. We can do that. And then people don't have to say, well, I have to choose. Am I going to go this way or am I going to go that way? You do not have to do that. And but there's been some real misinformation and understanding over the years in oncology. So the very first chemotherapy that was invented was after World War II, when we had excess mustard gas, and what are we going to do with all this mustard gas? We found that mustard gas was actually a great treatment for blood cancers. So we're talking like leukemia, lymphoma, this kind of thing. And because it worked on the bone marrow and things like that. So that was like the first great breakthrough in chemo, but it wasn't for solid tumors. Unfortunately, today, every single chemotherapy cocktail has that type of drug in it that destroys bone marrow. So this is why we see people undergoing chemo and radiation, chemo, and their blood cells go all off whack. But it's ridiculous, because they never needed that component, because they have a solid tumor cancer, which most cancers are. And then there was the other big misunderstanding, which was that because chemotherapy and radiation kill cancer through what we call oxidative stress, production of free radicals that destroys the cells, we don't want people with cancer to have any antioxidants. So don't eat vegetables, don't eat fruits, no vitamin A, no vitamin C, no vitamin D, you know, none of the antioxidant nutrients. So nutrition really went far afield because they thought that that was going to protect, those antioxidants were going to protect the cancer cells. So what we now know is that when you furnish antioxidants, especially glutathione, melatonin in the body, but any antioxidants, not only does it protect the healthy cells from becoming cancerous, not only does it protect them from the effects of chemo and radiation, but it sucks the protective glutathione and other antioxidants out of the cancer cells and makes them more vulnerable. But most oncologists still to this day do not realize that. So people were being told, don't eat good food because that's going to interfere with your treatment. Whoa. That was
and a standard of care then. right? Your standard of care in a case like that is unfortunate. So even if you have an oncologist who's like very aware of all this and is right on the cutting edge of all of that, they still have to make the same recommendations, sort of like just in case, just in case something doesn't work. And even though now they're on the cutting edge themselves as a practitioner, they're sort of bound to the oversight, which in this case can be a bummer. And in other cases, the fact that you have doctors and chiropractors, all included, that we have oversight, can be a really, really good thing too. So make no mistake, like those organizational bodies are there for a reason. And as a chiropractor in this profession, I can say that there's some very good reasons for that, because it is such a varied profession.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the nervous system, right? I mean, that's totally involved in the immune system. That's totally involved in every system. So if you,
including the cancering process, for sure. We look at tension patterns throughout the entire system. So basically, a quick synopsis of what we do in the office is we analyze an entire system for tension. We focus on the spinal cord itself and how that is affecting the segmental aspect of the spine. And then it's impossible to look at that and not look globally. And there's varying degrees of tension patterns. So someone who's cancering will have an underlying, oftentimes like kind of hidden tension pattern running through the nervous system that is like screaming high tension. I mean, just about as high as it's going to get. And it's oftentimes like, even though it's screaming high, it's sort of like quiet and right under the surface. So it's really important to make sure that as a practitioner, that's something that we're aware of, so that we basically start getting all of the strategies that someone has, because make no mistake, your body's the most advanced technology on the planet. And when we talk about cancer, we have to acknowledge that like people are cancering all the time. Like cells are going through a cancer process all the time. Like almost everyone listening to this probably has at least a cancer cell in their body at this current moment. And don't worry, because your body's going to take care of it. It knows how to do that. And so that's a natural process. What we're talking about here today is when that process gets out of control for a lot of it more like, we started off this whole bit talking about being a hospitable host to disease and being an inhospitable host, right? So if we start to swing toward being more of a hospitable host, whether that's, stress or, toxins with the overall toxic load or additional infections, I mean, there's so many things that can depreciate our level of health, but you have the ability within your body to regulate all of these things. So through our lens, we just take a look at, okay, so where's the system at right now currently, regardless of what's going on, regardless of who you're working with, and make sure that you have as many of those strategies that are baked in, that are innately yours, on board and empowered as possible. And oftentimes that really helps with an end result.
yeah. And a lot of cancer is genetically, there are common genetic weaknesses that make somebody more vulnerable to cancer. We've talked about folate metabolism, MTHFR defects, and things like that in the past. So again, one of the biggest things about those is that we don't make enough glutathione. And glutathione, when glutathione is high in your body, it's watching all your cells for picking up any little starting mutation. So it sees a cell over there starting to mutate, and it's like, dude, I'm going to come over there and try to help you repair yourself. But if we can't do that, you're going to have to turn the gun on yourself and kill yourself. Apoptosis, programmed cell death. So a great example of that, I know I've given it before, but it's definitely speaks to the cancer thing, is Angelina Jolie with the BRCA1 gene mutation and had a higher rate of cancer. They found women with that genetic defect had a 49% increase in the development of cancer. And all they did was give a control group, a group against a control group, like under 300 micrograms of selenium a day for 3 weeks, and it brought their DNA damage down to the control. So this is how we can take nutrients. We can take different things and not say, oh my goodness, it's in my genes, so forget it. It's just my destiny. I'm sorry, my grandmother had breast cancer, my mother had breast cancer, my two aunts had breast cancer, and my sister, so I'm doomed. No, that's what I want to shout from the rooftops is, no, your genes are not determinant, and it's not that hard if you know how to circumvent what they're not doing and put in what they're not doing for you.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Becky, you're bringing up a really good point that I wanted to mention, like our environment. Yes, genetics does have a role, but we're not tied to it. We're not just because, like we were saying, just because my family history is diabetic or cardiovascular compromised, whatever it may be, we are not always in the same position as most people. And our environment makes a huge difference. And I wanted to touch base on this because I'm a strong proponent in emotions, and emotions leading to how our bodies process things. And I know it was either last week or the week before, we were talking about how we have our brain, our heart brain, and our gut brain. And so some things that are coming, new science that's coming into coming to light basically, is that our heart brain is now like a determining, because our emotions, we are emotional beings. We're supposed to be emotional beings. And we've learned, especially through network care, like if you get cancer and you try to pray it away or love it away or, be good to it, it might kill you. Like you actually have to come to grips with it and get mad about it. Like, how could my body possibly betray me like this, and get mad and bring that emotion to the surface in a physiological emotion, like whether it's, downright screaming or, crying, just having that emotional, not suppressing it, because we don't want to suppress. Like, it's very interesting. I don't know what the study was exactly, but like most people would rather die than be seen upset, which is ridiculous. Maybe Matt knows a little more about that particular study, but like, it's just a very interesting concept that I would rather die than be seen upset. And I'll be like, man, I'd rather be seen upset than die, in my head. But having the emotion, which we so much want to suppress in our lives now, because whether it's uncomfortable or just not used to it, I'm not sure. But I know that stress and emotion play hand in hand with the physiology of how our bodies process. And if we're constantly bombarded with negativity, I want to say, especially with the news, and what we watch and what we see, that's affecting our physiology, and that's affecting the emotions that come out, and it can make us more negative, and we feed off the negativity. Like I guess a good question, does it take more or less energy to talk about what's not working in your body or what's not working in your life
Than it does to talk about
talk about what's working in your life, like what's good?
Right.
Well, it's a lot easier to talk, negative about things and complain. That's pretty easy.
Right. It's like we tend to go, like, if you ever ask somebody what they want and all they tell you is what they don't want, like, what do you want in life? Well, I don't want, excuse me.
I don't want to cough in the middle of the
I can't even get it out. I don't want debt. I don't want, I don't want to be fat. I don't want this pain. I don't want headaches. It's all about the stuff I don't want. Instead, well, what do you want? And then we ask that question a lot, and it's like, what would you want more of?
Joy.
Oh, right, joy.
Great
Yeah.
choice.
Right. Love.
Right answer. Yeah.
Freedom. Money. That's more fun. That's like energy rich. Like all of you guys just kind of lit up when you said those things. So it's easier because it takes less energy to talk about what we don't want. And when we're bombarded with stuff that's not positive, currently COVID, you watch the news and it's this fire, this murder, this bankruptcy, this whatever, like it was all negative. I was noticing that, like, gosh, a decade ago, and I couldn't watch the local news anymore. I was like, what are these stories? And then you have one good thing about someone saved a puppy or something like that, right?
Yeah,
it's like,
maybe.
What is the point?
Maybe.
Huh?
Maybe
Maybe if you're lucky, they got that one.
Yeah.
But like, that can just feed into your physiology over time. And that's why I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I think for a lot of people, they don't realize that what we're intaking, what we're processing, especially when it comes to emotional stuff, how that's actually playing out in our physiology. And like cancer feeding on sugar, it also feeds on negativity, and you're creating a more acidic environment, which is allowing you to be vulnerable to it progressing. If we create our, and again, we don't want to say you're going to pray away the cancer or the disease. Like, yes, that's very helpful because group healing and things like that is very powerful. But man, at first we got to get to the emotion, we got to get frustrated, but we have to watch we have to be careful about what we watch and what we focus on most of the time. I know it's kind of long-winded, but hope that makes sense.
No, it's right. It's like when I was in little Sunday school, when I was a little kid, be careful little ears what you hear, be careful little eyes what you see, be careful, just be careful. Allison, I want to ask you, all right, because you talked about, tumor.
Yeah.
You talked about acupuncture for tumor. You talked about internal causes. You talked about external causes. But what I know that I would say if somebody just went to you for wellness, for acupuncture for wellness and the interdisciplinary things you do along with the acupuncture, isn't that going to strengthen the immune system? Isn't that going to? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the whole thing. You can have so many different causes of cancer, and it right along with what Dr. Tisa is saying, if you're not expressing your emotions, that right there is going to block up your energy. One of the best ways to block up your energy. And it's interesting that you say getting mad about it helps, because that makes total sense. The liver is in charge of the free flow of energy in the entire body. And the emotion of the liver organ system is anger. So it makes sense that if the liver is not expressing anger, if it's angry about something, it's going to stagnate not just the liver chi, but all of the chi, because it's in charge of the entire body's free flow of chi. So you're going to have so much stagnation, and getting mad, screaming into a pillow, whatever it does to exert that mad energy. Exercise is a great healthy way to do it. It's going to help move everything about. But yeah, I mean, we're absolutely boosting the immunity, and we can measure that with blood tests and research that they do on acupuncture. But you're doing so many other things too. You're increasing the metabolism, you're increasing the circulation. You're just opening everything up and just giving the power back to the body so it knows what to do, and let it do whatever it needs to do. It's really,
it's great. I love that.
It sounds like just removing these barriers, right? If you remove, like with the spinal network analysis and acupuncture, that kind of thing, it's like just, you've got a clog. It's like you've got like a plug, and things just aren't flowing. They're not moving. If we just get rid of the plugs and just allow things to move as they're supposed to.
Yeah.
And the one thing I think it's important to note here, and just all of these things are so great. And Dr. Tisa starting off with emotion, the importance of that. So if we take a look at, so cancer shows up, and cancer is showing up not just dropping out of the sky, but as a cumulative effect because of really like the way that someone has been living their life, right? So it's a huge sort of like stopping point to sort of reassess. And so when saying something like, the surest way to continue to go down the cancer road would be just to love it or to try to meditate your way out of it. The reason that is a potential outcome, possible outcome, would be because that's a very, while love is a very powerful force, it doesn't create much energy within the system for change. So change is a really important thing when it comes to cancer. So if cancer is not dropping out of the sky and it's showing up because of the way someone's been living their life, and now they're at this sort of like crossroads, so Dr. Tisa said, well, you want to get angry about it. So what does that do? Is there a little or a lot of energy in anger?
A lot.
Right? There's a lot. Yeah. It's like, is there a little or a lot of anger and rage? Like There's a lot. And here's the interesting thing about it. It's just energy. There's a quality to it, sure. But if you turn rage inside out, it's courage, courage, right? So someone who has courage has a ton of energy. So let's just talk about change for a second. If you make change in your life, so I'm sure there's lots of people listening who have made change just to make a change and didn't really change much, right? It didn't really make much of a difference. Like, how many people have ever moved their furniture around? Like, oh, well, the room's a little bit different, but like, same couch, same chair, like, you know, it didn't really change much. So you can change things and not have any progress, really. And then if you don't have any of that, like, you're not really growing. And if cancer is interrupting someone's life in such a huge way, and having had the, I guess the experience, I was going to say opportunity, but I don't really, I mean, so I've had close family members go through this process more than once, and being with them. And I can say that to see them on the other side of such an uncertain and scary time, they are radically different human beings, and in a really, really good way. They've completely transformed in so many aspects of themselves, their lives, how they interact with the world. It's incredibly inspiring to me as a practitioner, but just as a human being, and someone walking within that lineage. And what happens is that when someone gets upset, they create a ton of energy, and it requires energy to turn change into progress so that you can truly have growth, so that you can become someone else in the process. Because on the other side of all of this, you got to become someone else. The way who you were and how you were living beforehand does not work anymore. And that's why the emotions, the energy in motion of all of this creates fuel to change. It's not just about getting angry. It's about creating a higher energetic state so that eventually you can say, enough. I'm claiming my health back. I'm claiming my life back, my courage, my power, my strength, whatever it is that you have lost along the way, and that you are heading out on something altogether new, becoming someone new, and not looking back.
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot. I mean, that's so brilliant and wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, because how many people do we know go through this and, you know, they get through it on the other side and it was very, you know, emotionally trying. And then they just go back to the way that they were. And then it's kind of no surprise that maybe a year, 2 years, maybe 10, 20 years down the road, it might actually show up again. You know, like it's really making the change of who you are and what you stand for.
And
Yeah.
I think intention here is important too, you know, like having the intention that I'm reclaiming my life and this is an empowering thing and I'm going to make these changes for the good. Because when I think about cancer in just the lens of Chinese medicine, we think of these cells are just constantly replicating. They're just not shutting off. And it's just this going, going, going. And there's no like, just like chill out and stop for a while. And I've said this in so many times throughout our talks, but it's like this imbalance that we see in the Western culture of yin and yang. And it's a very yang-based culture where we're just constantly going and we don't have a whole lot of time for rest and relaxation, let alone sleep, you know? And I think that the rise of cancer in the Western industry does have something to do with that. You know, there's so much action and there's not enough rest and repairing, reflecting, clarifying what's a healthy cell, what's not a cell, just giving your body time. So yeah, I like what you're saying, Matt. And I think that's totally true. Like reclaim your power and like get angry and do stuff, but like channel it in the right way. Like make sure it's not just like oh my God, now I got to eat all of this good stuff and I have to do all of this. And I heard about this, so I'm going to do this. And it's like, just like make it a pure sort of plan, I guess.
Yeah. I know. I was thinking of this guy way back when, and he had a cancer and it was supposedly 4th stage inoperable. And anyway, you know, this was 2007, he's still alive and you know, he overcame the cancer and everything. But I remember his girlfriend told me, because he was like always so careful with his money and so very, you know, diligent to guard everything. And, you know, when he got sick, he just became like the most generous person in the world. And she said, hell, cancer is the best thing ever happened to, I'm not going to say his name, but, you know, it was just like, cancer is the best thing ever happened to him, you know, like changed his whole life, you know, and we can look at it that way. But I do want to say it's important to talk about, I feel, and I know we don't want to diss mainstream medicine, but I will tell you cancer is a huge industry, that cancer is curable, and the powers that be know that. And there are many drawbacks to curing cancer because it is a huge industry. It is probably the biggest big pharma industry in the world. And so you have the message when you get a cancer diagnosis that cancer is incurable. There's nothing you can do. Everything's very dismal. And you know, you get your notebook that tells you where to go to get your portacath and where to sign up for your first thing and where to go here, there, and everything. You are shell shocked. You are like, are you kidding me? I have the C word. I have it. That's it. Cancer kills. Cancer kills. And I just want to offer hope out there to people. That's really not the true message. We see a lot of good results with people with cancer, and a lot of, it is not the death knell. Like cancer has its vulnerabilities like anything else. And if you know how to deal with those, you have a much better chance. You have hope. We've seen really good things, not just me, many others across the world. But we're not told this. The day there is a cure for cancer, a cure, which is naive in itself because there's so many different cancers and there's not one cure, there's many cures and they already exist. But the American Cancer Society in its bylaws must shut down. They can no longer be a viable entity, they close up. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So understand that cancer is an industry. That doesn't mean your doctor knows about it or your doctor is evil and your doctor doesn't care about you. That's not the point. But there is a big incentive not to cure cancer. And I just have to say that.
And that kind of goes hand in hand with, you know, we have a disease care system, you know, where we are looking at biomedical markers only. And if you are doing anything different than that, it's a real challenge to what we have been sold as the authority in healthcare, which is really disease management, symptom care. And make no mistake, like, you know, we often joke in the office, like, hey, if you have a broken arm, like, please don't come see us, like, go to the ER, you know, and go deal with someone who deals with acute things, because there is nothing better than the marvel of the modern medicine that we have on this planet right now for acute situations. It never before. I mean, unbelievable. The surgeons and all of the other practitioners out there and what they're doing is like, it's truly miraculous. And we are so lucky to have that. And at the same time, it's a big picture always, right? And so if we look from point to point, sometimes it's hard to see that from 1,000 feet, like what you're talking about here, Becky, from 1,000 feet, what's actually going on. And the more that we can take a step back and look from that 1,000-foot view, the more empowered we become and the more empowered you can be in making your healthcare decisions and really the expression of life. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about here. You know, we brought up joy earlier, like joy, like you can't mess with joy, you know, it's like joy is, you just cannot mess. Like happy, it's like, oh, I'm happy. Like, oh, I just stubbed my toe. Oh, not happy, you know, but joy, like you can't mess with joy, right? Happenstance. Yeah. So anyway, you can't mess with it. And so what it is that you're claiming in your life, and then know also too, that if you have a lot of momentum in how you've been living your life, it's not going to be like flipping a switch, you know? So as a new self, and just to say a new self, as in like a more empowered version of you starts to emerge, it will vacillate back and forth between new self and old self, you know, to be like, yes, stake is in the ground, to like, oh my gosh, nothing ever works, you know, back to like stake is in the ground. And there will be that porpoising for a little while. And just know that that's part of it, and find the peer group that supports you in that, other people that are committed to that too. You can hold each other accountable and help each other along the way, because there's nothing out there in the Russian dentist society that's going to support that. That's something that you create, and you do it by surrounding yourself with the right people and the right information. And I would say information, yes, maybe is second to the primary, which is your community.
Wow. We actually have well said, Matt. We actually have a comment from a listener or a participant today, not a question, but an observation on trying to pray away disease. This is where I find tapping helpful because it helps to express frustrations as well as releasing what we have focused on. We get
Awesome.
what we don't want off our chest so we can then state what we do want. So, we've talked about tapping before. So somebody want to chime in on that?
That's a great way to move the energy in the body. The tapping is some points on really powerful acupuncture points. This is the first one. SI3 is kind of helps with like sorting and organizing. But yeah, you kind of go through, there's tons of YouTube videos on it, and you just talk about anything, even though I have cancer and I'm really frustrated by this process and the chemotherapy is giving me nausea and blah, and you just can go on and on and on, and all the negative stuff that's associated with it. You think about it and you bring it up, and it kind of shifts all that gunk from your sympathetic fight flight sort of mode down to your parasympathetic, where you can just digest it. It's not like you're losing your memories, but they don't affect you in the same way. You really are you're just moving them through.
And then look for how that translates. Yeah, look for how that translates into action. How then, when you have that integration of those emotions, how then does that, if it's getting stored in the body like that, which is what that's accessing, think of that like a little battery pack. Each one of those, a little battery pack, right? It's compressed energy. So if you have a good way of processing that and balancing that out, make sure that that is driving into some sort of change, not just trying to get rid of it. It's there for a reason, so use it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Cool. The documentary Heal, I believe it's on Netflix, is really good at explaining. It has a whole, is it EFT tapping,
Yeah.
realm, chiropractic, all this. That documentary is very powerful. Really good if you're interested.
Down. Yeah.
Everybody always mentions a book or something. And I was like, okay, well, sorry, I don't really read a lot of books, but I watch documentaries. So,
No, that's good.
the video aspect of it. Documentary Heal, really good.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, I can't believe an hour flew by already.
I know.
Good. Good. That was fun.
So much more to talk about.
I just want to say, bottom line, for cancer is not the death word. Cancer is the C word, not the D word. So please do not give up hope, and do not think that this is the end. This is a bump in your road. Your body, let's do the right things with it. You can really help yourself in ways that you're not being told. Remember, when the American Medical Association type of care says there is no cure and this is all we have, that means that's all they have. And that's valid. That they should be looked at alongside all of these other modalities and ways that you can just overcome something that's threatening your body, like you have been your whole entire life and didn't even know you were doing it. And, with many different things. And come on, just do not give in to that depression and despair and hopelessness, because that's the worst thing of all. And it's not necessary.
And it's low vibration, right? So,
Yeah.
High vibration.
Change your state, change your life.
Cool.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap this up, team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Yeah.
Shoot us some ideas if you're out there and you've made it this far into the webinar. What do you guys want to hear about us talk about?
Yeah, you can shoot us a message on our Facebook page, Proactive Health Collective of Keene, or email any of us, if you're in our loop or whatever, you have any of our communication. We all have websites, just like shoot us from the contact page. Anything, if you have topics you'd like us to talk about, we would love to know that and do it.
Yeah. And don't keep this a secret. If you're listening to this, I'm sure anyone listening to this, we could all think of at least one person who would benefit from this type of a conversation. So don't keep it a secret.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
We all have a good weekend. Yeah.
Love you all this much.
All
Happy
right.
fall.
Love you more.
Yeah.
Bye.